Hello and welcome to episode number 247 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have your friend and mine, Adam Candee. You can find him on the Twitter machine. That's Candee with two E's. Know why? If you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. Everything we do, absolutely free. So your podcast player of choice, go in, subscribe, rate, review. We do appreciate all of that. We will talk about a lot of DraftKings news here on the podcast. We'll see what's going on with yet another bookie going down, and that thing that we talked about here on the podcast several times over the last few months. And we'll kick things off with Missouri. But if you're watching us on the video feed, if you're wondering if there's a theme to what's been going on for the last month, and yes, there is, because Eric Ramsey was on the podcast, and Eric Ramsey decided to make a comment to me that I had spent an exponential amount of money on some hats or shirts as I've gone to these various golf courses over the past year. And I said, I actually have, and I did. I'm that guy. I did, I want to remember going to these courses. And so, yeah, if it wasn't a shirt, it was a hat, or sometimes it was both. And so just for you, Eric, I'm cycling through every damn one that I own over the rest of for these podcasts. And so this one, Kingsbarns, this is over in Scotland, Adam. So I went ahead and just let everyone know how this is going. Because I'm sure people are going, what's going on with this dude? He had a golf shirt on last week. He's had a couple of golf hats on the past week. It is all intentional.
You mentioned a moment ago that you could find us on your favorite podcast player. And let me just tell you something. With that kind of flex, Matt Brown, you're my favorite podcast player.
Oh, look at that. I like it. I like what you did right there. I mean, look, it's no big deal. Just a top 100 course in the world. It's no big deal. It's just
no big deal.
Kind of is.
No big deal. Hey, listen, it's no big deal. Just we don't even really need to talk about it, right? It's no big deal.
All right, Adam. So let's kick things off here in Missouri. We don't often call shenanigans and stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't like, but here we are, maybe some shenanigans going on there in Missouri.
Shenanigans, tomfoolery.
I like tomfoolery. That's a good one.
Could be there could be some malarkey depending on the way that this
depending on how it turns out, right?
We're not sure.
It could end up in the malarkey category
on how it shakes down. What's going on in Missouri is one of the probably quieter, more interesting stories that we've covered this year at Legal Sports Report. We've told you on this podcast about how it was going to the ballot. That process went very smoothly for Missouri sports betting to end up on the November ballot. Now, that smooth process has hit some rough patches here. There is a lawsuit filed in Jefferson City, Missouri, at the Capitol, that is challenging the certification process used by the Secretary of State to put it on the ballot and asking that it be thrown off. There's a lot of nitty-gritty here that you can get into in Pat Evans' article at LegalSportsReport.com that'll tell you exactly the grounds on which it's being challenged, what it would ultimately mean in terms of how many counties qualified, so on, so on. I don't want to lose you here in the first 3 minutes of the podcast, so I'm going to direct you to Pat's article. What I find most interesting, what Pat and I have both been researching over the last few days, is who filed this lawsuit? Because it is not really clear who filed the suit. The plaintiffs are named as Jacqueline Wood and Blake Lawrence, and it's been widely reported by people as, quote, Missouri residents. Matt, I think you and I both know that two Missouri residents did not wander up to the Capitol and say, I do not like this ballot measure, and I shall challenge it in a court of law. That's not how it went down.
Yeah.
The more we've dug into it, we see that these two people are both political consultants. They do not have any direct ties to any of the groups that we would think might potentially be in opposition to expansion of online sports betting in Missouri, including untethered licenses that could go to DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. Now, the attorney for these plaintiffs is actually on the other side of the political aisle. The consultants have represented largely Democratic interests over the last few years. The attorney who filed the suit on their behalf has represented a number of Republican interests, so there's no obvious partisan tie. We've heard rumors over time that there are certain casino companies that are not thrilled about the idea of untethered licenses going to places that do not have a casino presence in the state. It wouldn't be the first time we've heard about that kind of fight over tethering. We are working on uncovering exactly what is going on here. We actually have a story, as this is being recorded on Thursday, coming out at Legal Sports Report that's going to dig into everything that we know about the people involved in this and the folks that we've talked to. In short, we can't tell you definitively who filed this suit. There is a hearing next week on September 5th in which the plaintiffs, such as they are, will have to be in court and represent why they're challenging this. I'm sure that we'll get more into who they are and what their interests are, because we don't know at this point, and we will have to find out more as the coalition called Winning for Missouri Education, which has been heavily supported by DraftKings, FanDuel, the St. Louis Cardinals, and other professional organizations in Missouri, is opposing this, of course, and they will, I would think, dig in a little bit harder on finding out who the interests are that are standing in opposition at the moment.
They go hard on dictionary.com as far as what some synonyms for tomfoolery could be. Like they don't mess around. Like craziness. They go straight into lunacy, folly, if you will, for tomfoolery. So the synonyms go hard, man. It's like, you know, tomfoolery, you say like, hey man, there's some tomfoolery going on. That's kind of like light. You feel like it's, you know, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. It's tomfoolery. They're straight up lunacy, craziness, folly. There's all kinds of, I mean, they go hard for I like the synonyms here for tomfoolery.
I don't know. I feel I don't want to ascribe any sort of, you know, mental health issue to it, but what about like horsing around or
Right.
horseplay?
Exactly.
Or
that seems more like tomfoolery than lunacy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've known a lot of foolish Toms in my time.
Exactly.
Let me be honest. Like,
And you might not
I
call
don't
them
want to name
lunatics.
anybody by name. Let's.
Well,
I don't call anybody out by name, but you know who you are.
yeah, you're out there. You know exactly who you are. Someone right now is going like, "Oh my God, he's talking about me on the podcast." Well, you know, if that's you,
You're welcome.
stop the fooling, Tom. All right, so Adam, let's head to DraftKings in three different things to talk about here with DraftKings. However, whatever order you want to start with here, man, that is quite up to you, because we go from maybe good news, depending on how you look at it, to not so great news to not so great news. And so, you know, maybe we want to go in that order.
I will start with the news of the day. I'll kind of go in chronological order here and talk about something that had been rumored for quite a while. We actually have reported on it at LSR in the past, and it came to fruition late last night when DraftKings announced that it had acquired SimpleBet, one of the leading live micro market betting providers out there. No financial terms were disclosed. Speculation from at least one stock analyst that this deal could be roughly $195 million, $70 million paid up front, according to Jordan Bender of JMP Securities, but the terms have not been released as yet. We would naturally find out about this at the latest in Q3 earnings, so you might just have to wait a little bit, but we will find out the purchase price eventually. What's interesting to me about this is that SimpleBet had been one of those B2B providers that had been working with a number of sportsbooks. And now it will be DraftKings essentially going out there, paying the price to say, no, we want your technology working in-house with us, giving us the line into micro betting and better capacity for in-play. And Matt, it works right alongside with other deals that we've seen in the space of late, right? We talked about MGM's acquisition of Angstrom. They put out a release about that before football season here, talking about their upgraded in-game abilities. They also have out on the market, there was the PointsBet deal with Bannock that is now Fanatics obviously owning that technology and trying to make their mark in the live betting space. But there's been so much talk from the early days of this market 6+ years ago about where live betting was going to fit into the overall ecosystem, a discussion of how in the UK and Europe it is more than a majority of how betting is done. DraftKings not only going in here and attacking it in terms of in play, but SimpleBet in particular has a lot of those micro markets that we discuss. Next at bat, next snap, you know, those sorts of things that give people the opportunity to bet in real time. Now, I think there are a lot of folks out there, not only in the responsible gambling space, but in the sharp betting space, who would say, yeah, when you're having to make decisions that quickly on these sorts of markets, you're not always making the most informed decision, right? Like you're not always getting down the smartest bet. And I asked the Simple Bet folks a while ago, off the record, sort of, hey, like, are we talking just about, $5-10 bets? And essentially what they were saying is, no, on some of these markets, you could add a few zeros to what we've seen wagered on a next play type of market. And again, these are the sorts of things that over time are more likely to add to the bottom line of the sports book than they are to add to the bottom line of the customer. So an interesting purchase here for DraftKings, going in for a reported up to around $200 million for Simple Bet.
Yeah. Really interesting to me, too, that one of the things that I read in the article here, Adam, because I actually texted to you about this offline, and I wanted to just kind of have a discussion about just the market overall for just in-game in general. And obviously this acquisition maybe speaks to me being wrong in all of this, because I actually thought that the appeal to in-game might actually be waning strictly because of how we have to consume sports these days, right? I mean, like, so many people made the switch to YouTube TV whenever the NFL package went over there, especially when we're talking about sports fans, and that's who's going to be betting in-game more times than not, right? And so I thought with the delays that we see, with all of that, I mean, even the marquee games that, so let's say you didn't make the switch to YouTube TV, you don't have a choice on Thursday Night Football. It's on Amazon. It is what it is. It's streaming. You don't have a choice. It doesn't matter where you get your television from with all of that. I actually thought we'd be going in the other direction. And maybe a purchase like this says that I'm kind of wrong about that. And honestly, anecdotally, and I think you and I are in agreement on this, just anecdotally, right? I mean, like, the only people I know that in-game bet are for any amount of money are the guys that would be considered a little bit sharper and stuff. And we know it's so much harder to get down more money in game as well, which is why the 35-ish% to maybe even up to 40% of total handle in the United States being in game was just shocking to me. I would have said 15 to 20%, literally half of what they're saying that it is. Because like I said, I mean, pregame, you can get 5 figures down. You can get 6 figures down pregame, and if you really, really wanted and you wanted to go to the right book, you could get 7 figures down if you wanted to. You'd have to go talk to somebody, but like that's also a possibility. That's just not possible in game at all. So I was very, very shocked by that.
And you mentioned the sharper people getting down in game, and I think it's important that we draw a distinction here between what we're talking about with these micro markets and next play and next at bat and next pitch and all of that sort of thing. Those are different than when we talk about the sharp bettors, right? The sharp bettors are going into each game with a plan of what they're looking for in game. They might not have liked the way the market broke during the week. They might have reacted to injury news that they saw on Sunday morning and decided, I don't like how it looks like right now, but if it gets to a certain line, if it gets to a certain total, then I might fire on it, right? It's a different sort of thing. And that gets into the same thing you just talked about with latency, with delay and reject when it comes to, are you able to get down what you want when you want? There are a lot of questions that come along with this that we could get deeper into as we discuss not only latency of broadcast, but as you mentioned, with the all streaming ones.
Yeah.
You could dig really far down if you want. You get into rural broadband discussions if you wanted to talk about, the potential for growth in the market and how much people are able to, really be able to do this in areas that don't have the same ability to connect to the internet, right? Like how good's your cell signal if your Wi-Fi is not working well, right? And there are some places that you and I know very well. There's some places in Nevada where if you're on Wi-Fi, you can't get the bet down. You have to be on a cell signal because they know where your Wi-Fi is and they don't necessarily want your bet. So this is a discussion that goes many, many, many different ways when it comes to the live betting part. Now, Matt, you talked about how also DraftKings had some other news going on as well. And that is maybe not as positive for DraftKings as we discussed last week, the fact that there was a suit filed by the NFLPA, the Players Association, against DraftKings. We speculated that it might be based on the Rainmakers NFT product, and it turns out that is what this lawsuit is about. It's actually for significantly more money than we originally speculated. We had said in the range of $30-something million. It's about double that, $65 million. The lawsuit filed by the NFLPA. DraftKings has not commented on it. We did ask them about the suit, but the NFLPA is accusing within this suit that DraftKings essentially just isn't able to monetize the Rainmakers product, and they shut it down for that reason, but that doesn't exactly let them off the hook for the contracts that they have. A lot more detail in the stories that we have at Legal Sports Report from Matthew Waters and Sam McQuillan covering this, Matt, but, $65 million, not a small amount, and
Not at all.
It is an interesting amount of discord between the NFL Players Association and DraftKings.
And the other thing that just really, I'm sure this is the first thing that a lot of people think about too, just from a business aspect, is it's probably an organization that you are going to have to work with in the future too, in some capacity with all of this. And so it's not starting off all that rosy for you here with that. But I mean, if you're going to have long-term stability, obviously in this way, you're going to have to work with NFLPA some way, shape, or form. For years and years and years to come. So this is how this all goes down, Adam, and how they handle this is going to be, that's the more interesting story for me moving forward, is how is this handled? What is the statement going to be when this is settled, or when this is all said and done? Is it going to be like, oh no, we kumbaya, everything's great or whatever? Or is it going to be something different? It's going to be, that's what I'm really kind of sitting here waiting on.
Well, that is the discord that I was referring to, perhaps rancor, a little bit of rancor.
Yes,
as
like
well.
There we go.
It's a real thesaurus-heavy edition of the LSR podcast today.
Hey, buddy, I like that you're using these words right here, because we get to go in, and it's just like somebody is sitting there going, you know what? I like that word that Adam just used, and I think I'm going to put that in my vocabulary over the next couple of weeks.
Well, if I'm anything but a human word-a-day calendar, I do not know what that purpose is quite yet. The PA discussion that you bring up is really interesting to me for another reason. It's something we've discussed on the podcast previously. Let's look at DraftKings getting involved here with Simplebet and making that purchase to get enhanced in-game, live, and maybe custom type markets, right? Well, the more we've talked about this over time, the more we've discussed where is the line going to be drawn on how fast is a player running,
right? Or
how high are they jumping, or et cetera, et cetera. Well, that all is going to come down to biometric data and biometric tracking. You know who you have to go through if you want your biometric data to be out there? You got to go through the Players Association. So these are the sorts of discussions that will be very interesting to watch. In the suit, you see that the NFLPA says, essentially, they tried repeatedly to get DraftKings to engage on this, and DraftKings is trying to say that there is a clause within this deal that allows them to get out of it. They claim that there's something in there that says that if NFTs are ruled to be unregistered securities, that there is an out in the deal. And really, there's a lot of question about that. There's nothing in the law at this point that would suggest that that is the case, but that is what they're arguing at this point.
Yeah, super wild, super interesting. Can't wait to see how that goes down. And then one final thing here, and again, this one maybe is maybe the worst of all of them.
Depends on how far the suit goes, Matt. The one that we're talking about here is DraftKings being named as a defendant in a class action suit. This is a suit over what is being termed deceptive bonus offers. Now, we've talked a lot about this when it talks about whether it is how much you can get as an amount for your sign up, how much you have to put in order to get that amount, what is a match bet versus what is a free bet,
play through, the timing, all the different
There's,
stuff like that. Yeah,
there are a lot of different ways that you can discuss how these things go down. And really what is in question here is talk about a $1,000 sign-up offer, and essentially, are you really getting $1,000 as a sign-up offer? Now, nothing has happened in this suit that essentially, is going to be groundbreaking to this point. But the news this week was that DraftKings had attempted to get the suit dismissed, and the judge did not go along with that. And if this is not in some way settled, as Sam McQuillan reports, we would move into the discovery phase of the potential trial, and that is where things, of course, get interesting. We talk plenty about how sportsbooks do not want their proprietary business out there in the public, and I'm sure getting deep into marketing strategy is not something that DraftKings wants to be out there in the public eye. Now, some of that might be potentially redacted info. We don't know. We're speculating, right? Make very clear. We're speculating on what could ultimately come out there. This lawsuit might ultimately not really go anywhere, but judge has ruled that it is not to be dismissed at this point, and so we're keeping an eye on what happens there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Adam, too, where we're just it seems like it's been just a lot of I'm not going to say negative stuff about DraftKings here lately, but I mean, between the fees and the this and the that and whatever, we haven't had a ton of super positive stuff here on the pod about DraftKings of late.
I mean, there probably is a bit of a feeling out there if you're listening to this that, FanDuel is Kermit sipping the tea, right? And that meme of just sort of like, oh, we're just going to sit and watch what's going on over here at the moment. Just a lot of news happening to come out at one point. And frankly, this could be even more of an interesting podcast had a court date that was originally scheduled this week in California gone down, because the DraftKings and Michael Hermelin situation between DraftKings and Fanatics was actually supposed to enter a courtroom this week. That got delayed by a few weeks, so we're tracking that as well. But if you like your literary references, heavy is the head that wears the crown.
I like where you went right there. That said, we always talk about this. Hey, we are not stock advisors, nor do we know anything really about stocks. And so if you guys out there do, but that being said, I mean, since all this really started going down, let's just call it July 1, since we've kind of started to talk all about this stuff. July 1, 37.30. And then, today, 35.33. So, I mean, again, it's $2. And I understand if you have a million shares or whatever, you have a million shares, $2 is $2. I get all that. But I mean, it's not like this is wow, this stock, lost 30% of its value since all of this kind of air quote negative PR has been coming out or anything like that. So again, the stocks are at least somewhat stable.
Well, it's a matter of taking the roller coaster ride, right? Because they did drop under $30 on news of the surcharge, and then 2 weeks of that kind of beating definitely contributed to DraftKings deciding to back off the surcharge, and we saw positive reaction from the market almost immediately after that. Now, you'll find people out there who are DraftKings fans who will say, well, look at the greater market forces and this and that, and there were days that the market was dropping anyway. Our Matthew Waters has looked pretty closely at it, and the trading volume was highest on the day the surcharge was announced and the day the surcharge was dropped. So the market spoke pretty clearly. DraftKings listened, and here we are, kind of not back at stasis, but pretty close.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up here with an addition to a story that we've talked about a couple of different times here on the podcast. You guys remember about that illegal sports betting ring that had a tie to Resorts World here in Las Vegas, and Adam, just another piece to this puzzle.
So a plea agreement announced this week between Damian LaForbes, a professional poker player, and the federal government for, and I want to read this directly from the story by Matthew Waters, pleading guilty to operating an illegal sportsbook and money laundering. He faces up to 15 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of $500,000 or twice the gross gain or loss resulting from the illegal business, whichever is greater. I think it'll be pretty clear as you start to hear some of the numbers in this story what that might ultimately be on which side of that. But Matt, the most interesting part of this story is the casino that is involved in a lot of this situation has to do with how the money was, I'm not going to say washed, that's a little too strong, but how the money was handled, right?
Yes.
According to the story, the illegal sportsbook set up no later than January 2021. The bets were taken both in L.A. County, Orange County, and Clark County, which is, of course, Las Vegas, in Nevada. It's pretty similar to what we've heard with other bookie operations. LaForbes employed agents who would bring in new bettors in exchange for a portion of their gambling losses. A website or call center would be used to create accounts where the bets could be tracked. We know that is a lot of the offshore action where these call centers are set up. The illegal operation took payments in checks and wires in the name of a shell company, as well as through crypto, cash, and PayPal. And some of the money went through what is known as Casino A in the release from the government. Casino A bears some resemblance from what we've seen in other stories that have come out recently to Resorts World in Las Vegas. We just saw that other illegal bookmaking operations have gone through that casino as well. We did recently see a 31-page document from the Nevada Gaming Control Board talking about people with ties to illegal bookmaking and their dealings with that casino. Now, of course, that is not entirely confirmed, but according to the story that the government tells, LaForbes, the bookie involved here, wagered more than $148 million through Casino A.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and an interesting story that we're going to continue to put the pieces to. This is not the end of this one for sure when it's all said and done. Adam, we got all of these stories over at LegalSportsReport.com. I know you said, the great work that's been put in by a lot of your guys over there. So they listen to the things, they read the things, they inquire about the things so that you don't have to. So go over to LegalSportsReport.com, read all of those articles. Please click on every single one of them, and you get a more in-depth look at all of this than we can even talk about here on the podcast. As we said earlier, everything we do is absolutely free. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that little rating button. Go ahead and give us 5 stars. We'll take a 4, take a 3, and you can shove it where the sun don't shine. We don't want your 3s. We don't want your 3s. We don't want your 2s, and certainly don't want your 1s. So we'll take the 4s and the 5s, Adam, the 3s and below. Hey, just tell us what we did wrong, and we'll send you a pack of M&Ms or something in the mail.
Yeah, what I don't like is when we get into those Yelp reviews where it's like, the restaurant was great. We love this dish and that. But the hostess took 35 seconds to greet us. 1 star.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't be that for us.
The worst ones that I get, and I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but the worst ones that I read, Adam, is like the ones that you go to a steakhouse in Las Vegas, and you're like, service was great, food was phenomenal, but it was really pricey. It was way overpriced, like three stars. And it's like you went to a Vegas steakhouse, like. You said the service was good and the food was good. You're complaining about the prices. You went to a Las Vegas steakhouse. Like, what are you talking about? How's that 3 stars? That's on you. You get the 3 stars, buddy, not the restaurant. You actually should get a 1 star for that.
Now, listen, if more people were like Damian LaForbes and wagering $143 million when they were in Las Vegas, the steakhouses wouldn't have to charge those prices because we're well aware, Matt. We understand what's happened in Vegas over the last 2 decades. People are gambling less, and so the resorts have raised the prices on shows. They've raised the prices on food, right? They got to make the money one way or the other, and so maybe people need to just start gambling millions and they can get some free steaks.
Best steak I ever had in my life. I would have taken the waiter home with me. I loved him so much. But it was expensive, 3 stars. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? No, that's not how this works. You can put in there that it's a bit pricey. You still give them 5 stars. They did what they were supposed to. They served you good, and they served you good food. Don't give me this nonsense about it being too expensive. Anyway, that's my rant on all of that. If you leave those type of reviews, go and delete them. Like, no one wants those reviews. Or just leave the good stuff in there. Guys, this is episode 247, coming up on episode 250 here in a few weeks. Adam, I mean, if you'd have told us we'd have made it to 50, I might have giggled, and here we are heading up on 250 episodes of the LSR podcast, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys out there for listening because, we do hear your feedback, and we do hear about, it's nice to be able to come in and just kind of get a quick wrap up each and every week. So, Adam, your team doing a good service out here, and again, heading up to 250 episodes now.
We try to keep the tomfoolery to a minimum and give you the news in a nice, easy, digestible, dog walk length format.
But the lunacy, we'll crank up the lunacy.
You know what? The lunacy tends to come out of the news. We just try to report on it.
We'll crank that up. For Adam, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.